So welcome everybody to the Be Empowered Show. I'm your host Graham Hopkins. I'm welcoming back Susie Beiler, and I say back because we've just done part A of a two-part interview, and this interview will take a slightly different tone, if you like. However, I highly recommend that you go back and listen to Susie's first conversation that we had, and that'll set a foundation for this discussion, because Susie and I live on opposite sides of the world, but we're actually running very similar journeys in life. And what we're going to discuss now is about a new paradigm in business, which I think is really exciting, because I totally agree with Susie and what she's got to share in this field. And we were discussing previously, Susie, about the fact that you now use didgeridoo, which comes from Australia, and it comes from the Indigenous people in Australia, the Aboriginals, and it's probably not a coincidence you're now living in Sedona, Arizona, which is got a history of the American Indian living there. And I'm just wondering, Susie, if we in the West have kind of lost our way in regards to how to do business, and maybe this is just the beginning of something where we're actually reconnecting with our brothers that we're really connected to anyhow. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, have we lost our way? Well, you know, perhaps I'm more interested in looking to the future and what we are creating collectively, and letting whatever has happened so far, letting that be.
So tell me a little bit more about your thoughts on this new business paradigm that that's been running through your mind.
Yeah. Well, I would love to share with you the old definition of business and the new definition of business as I see it. The old definition of business is making one's living by engaging in commerce. You know, sounds about right. That's what we know. My definition is the practice of making one's living by engaging in soul-inspired commerce through the heart. So that means we're living from the expression of our souls, our spirit, and it's coming from a heart-centered place. We're not doing this out of ego. We're not doing this, you know, from that ego drive to make lots of money. We're doing this because it is the expression of our soul, and it's coming through the purity of our hearts. So that's my definition. And that's how I've been running my business, and how I'm really starting to immerse myself more in that way of doing business.
My thought there is, to me, the key word there is inspired. So we're inspired to follow our passion, in other words.
Yeah.
Susie, I mean, you said that you've been on a journey, and this is a part of your journey. Obviously, a little bit different to, you know, the health journey that you've been on. Where do you see your place in this?
In the new business paradigm?
Yeah.
Okay, your voice froze up a little bit. I see myself really as a leader and a pioneer in this movement, which in some regard is a little bit of a tricky place to be, because it means stepping out in faith away from the way it is now, and really kind of being gutsy and ballsy and creating something new and different that doesn't quite work yet because we don't have the new paradigm in place yet. But I really do see myself holding the light and the space for that to occur on this planet, and enrolling other people to do it with me.
Cool. Well, I'd like to put up a hand. So tell me a little bit more about it. What does one need to do in order to enter into this new paradigm where we're connecting more with our intuition, our spirit, and following our heart's desire?
There are 4 polarities that we need to balance, and I'll go through them quickly, and then we can spend more time on each one if you like. The first polarity to balance within ourselves is the masculine and feminine energy. The second is strategy, using strategy in our business versus taking inspired action. The third is being surrendered versus being committed. And the fourth is earning money from our essence. So the polarity is essence versus income, and how we make that work.
Okay, so in the previous interview, we talked a lot about surrender. So can we reverse that and start off with that? Because
sure.
It seems like that's almost the most important one.
Sure. So for me, surrender is like this space in which I trust and allow. And I put that next to commitment, because for me, commitment sometimes means taking too much action and driving too hard. And it's kind of the opposite energy than surrender for me. So we need to bring these into a balance, because if we're too surrendered, we might not take any action, we might not do anything, we might just, you know, let life happen. And if we're not, I don't think you can be too committed, but but if you're too much in that action piece where you're always doing, you never you never get that opportunity to kind of pull back and see that larger perspective around you and be in surrender and trust to what the universe might bring you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's more about, the commitment is more about doing, and the surrender is more about being.
The way I'm framing it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Although commitment is also a state of being, if you have it in balance.
Yeah.
If you have it in the correct balance.
Excellent. So how's this been playing out in your life?
Well, I'm one of those people who, you know, you could call me an overachiever. I'm ready to take action all the time. Like, I'll just do and try to make something happen. And for me, I've had to learn how to step back, how to surrender to a bigger picture that I might not see all the pieces of, but know and trust that I'm going in the right direction, and things can happen and occur easily for me without me doing so much. So I'm a little bit opposite than some, because I'm, you know, people, coaches talk about, you know, getting into action and, you know, taking imperfect action and all those things, and I'm like, that's not my problem. I don't have an issue with that. My issue is learning how to be quiet and still and allowing the universe to work for me instead of thinking I have to do all the work. Because I don't have to do it all.
Yeah. I recently released an interview on this show with a lady called Jackie Trotman, who's all about learning to be still. It's such an important aspect of all of this. But the other thing that you've brought up that I'd like to highlight is trust. And I know that in your previous interview, on this show, you talked a lot about trust, the trust of moving to Sedona, for instance. And that is also a high priority in this new paradigm of learning to connect with spirit in doing business.
Especially for those of us who don't have like $1-million bank accounts when we're starting a business or continuing in our business, trusting that as we embark in this new paradigm that we'll be, our needs will be taken care of. Because if we are truly doing things in a new paradigm way, it's in a way where there's not such a strong attachment to making lots of money in our business. And there's nothing wrong with making lots of money in your business. That can be part of the new paradigm. However, that attachment to making money and if you are in business just to make money, that's old paradigm. The new paradigm way, again, is doing soul-inspired, living out our soul-inspired mission as our business through our hearts, and trusting that we'll be taken care of in that. Until we really set up this new way of being, there's a little discomfort, and we need to step up and trust that we'll be taken care of in the process.
Okay, so we've talked already about surrender and acceptance. Do you think that attachment to something is the opposite to that? Is that moving in a direction that is not going to allow us to accept?
Yeah, attachment creates blocks. Attachment creates blocks to the flow coming in. So if I'm attached to making $1 million in my business this year, already I've set up this limitation for myself. It's this energetic limitation that says, this is how it has to be. And if that's not in my highest good, if that's not in my, the grand plan for my soul, well, I'm going to get pretty frustrated and upset. And I've done that. So I know how this works. But since I've become unattached to how it all unfolds, surprises flow in, I'm taken care of, my physical needs are met, my spiritual, emotional, mental needs are met. I'm doing well. I'm enjoying life.
Yeah. You talk a lot about energy flow, which I agree 100% with. I don't know if you know, Susie, but I've been an airline pilot for over 40 years now, and I see my job as being a manager of energy. So basically, when I fly from A to B, I'm trying to do it most efficiently. And an aircraft wing actually moves through the air at around about, if you took the horizontal, the angle of attack is around about 2.5 to 3 degrees. That's the most efficient for that aerofoil. And what happens is if we raise the nose of the aeroplane and come up to 15, 16 degrees, the airflow can't get over the wing, so it starts creating drag, which would be a good analogy with attachment.
Yeah.
And the whole object is to try to lower the nose and generate more lift, more energy, more flow. And I know that's basically what you do with a lot of your work, is creating the flow of energy.
And that's really what the 4 polarities that I mentioned, those 4 dichotomies, that's really what finding a balance with those is all about, so that you can allow that inward flow, that receptive flow.
There's some great analogies there, because the other thing in aviation is the center of gravity, which is like the fulcrum of a seesaw, and basically that's what balance is. So what you're talking about, the balance, is I believe 100% correct. That's what we need. We need to come back into balance in order to get our energy flowing and be more productive as a human being.
Absolutely.
Tapping into our potential, if you like.
Yeah.
So what's the next aspect of this balance that you talk about?
Okay, so the next set that we can talk about is the masculine and feminine energies. And whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, you need to have that integration of those two energies, that balance. I mean, a lot of people talk about, you know, the feminine's rising up and the feminine's going to take over and all this stuff. And my belief is that what's really needed is an integration of the two, because we need the masculine and we need the feminine. The feminine is soft and receptive. The masculine is, you know, the go-getter energy. And in business especially, it's key that those energies are integrated within us, that we embody those energies. So even though I'm a woman, I've embraced the masculine energy in my being for a long time. And that was why I took too much action. And that's why probably why I got chronic fatigue syndrome, because I wore myself out from giving, giving, giving. And because my feminine wasn't developed, because I hadn't really tapped into that and accessed that part of myself, I was doing, but never really, you know, this is kind of the surrender thing, never really pulling back and receiving, never really getting quiet within my being and taking, you know, allowing things to come to me. I was always trying to make things happen and doing way too much work. So what it looks like when we're integrated is we have times where we pull back, maybe we meditate or whatever we do to get in tune with what our heart desires and what we want to create. We hold that in our hearts. And then there are times where it shifts, when it's time to take action, where the masculine energy comes into play. And we go forth out into the world and we create things, we do things, we put things out there, we do videos. And then the masculine comes, I mean the feminine comes back into play after we put something out there, then we pull back, we sit, we wait, we get quiet, we allow things to come and flow into us. So it's this constant, you know, we're on that, the fulcrum of the seesaw, that constant, you know, back and forth balancing. But we know, go ahead.
If we put too much attention on one, then we're going to step one way too much and the seesaw's going to tilt, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, and the integration piece really is having that discernment of when to use which energy. When to go forth, when to pull back. Being in tune with our own selves, being in tune with what's happening universally, what's happening in the world, what's happening in our town, you know, kind of having that diffuse awareness about what's going on around us, so we know when is a good time for me to step out, when is a good time for me to go in, that kind of thing. I mean, we could talk for hours about this. It's a very deep subject.
Yeah, and very important one.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear what the next one is.
Yeah. So strategy versus inspired action. You know, I've had a lot of business training, and a lot of it was strategy, strategy, strategy. You got to set up these systems in your business. You have to make these moves. You got to do this thing on your website. You offer the free gift. You do videos, blah, 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 on and on and on. Well, if you go through the motions without it being inspired, without it being something that your heart and spirit wants to do, it's not really going to do anything for you. It's not going to do anything for your business. But if you can do those things from a place where you're like, oh yes, that's exactly the right fit for me, that's exactly what I want to do, that's the way I want to do it, then great, those strategies are wonderful. And then sometimes spirit will talk to you, or you'll hear something through your intuition or through your heart that will say, do this. And it will be something that a business mentor said, never do that.
Mm.
You know in your being it's right for you. You take that inspired action, not knowing what's going to happen, not being attached to any outcome. You take that inspired action. That's true for you. That's going to yield fruit.
I believe that 100%. You know, I have no attachment to this show. You know, if it doesn't work, so be it. I'm doing this because I get inspired by it. I get inspired by talking to people like you, and you know, it's my passion. It's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I don't do these interviews because I think in my head, oh, it's a great way to, be seen or put myself out there or whatever. I do this with you because I love these conversations. They fuel me. They nourish me. It's exciting for me. So,
Hmm.
it's inspired.
What inspires me is that you can talk with people from all over the world, and you know, I think we're 11 hours time difference, and we're still connected to the one spirit, you know, and we're spiritual beings, and basically, I think that's what we're trying to say in regards to business, that we need to get back to our essence and learn how that works, so that we can actually become abundant through it in our own way. And that doesn't necessarily mean money.
Right.
The fact that we're connecting is abundance.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a perfect segue into the fourth dichotomy, essence versus income. Traditional business, you have a business plan, you have projected income. This is, if I do these steps, this is how much money I should make. That's the old business paradigm. The new business paradigm is tapped into essence. Okay, through your being, through what your soul is expressing, what your spirit is oozing out of your pores, you will attract people to you and sustain yourself. And I'll say it again, there's nothing wrong with making money. In fact, making money from your essence is the best way to make money, in my opinion. That's
Totally.
the new business paradigm. Because then you're feeding your soul, and when you're feeding your soul and your spirit, you're touching people, and other people get inspired, and it spreads like a beautiful virus. And I mean, that's really what all of this is about, isn't it? For me, the more I can express my true essence, the more deeply I can impact people and have them shift in their own lives and have them free themselves and heal themselves and find their own joy. And I love doing that. That lights me up more than anything.
It's hugely exciting, Susie. Where do you see this going?
Yeah. What I'm creating is a world where we don't need money as our exchange. We are naturally attracted to those who have something that we desire, and we give something to them that they desire. And we can exchange it in a beautiful flow where there's an equal exchange, A lot of practitioners that I know of do a lot of exchange work, and I actually don't, because most of those exchanges aren't equal for me. I'm giving more than I'm receiving. But in my world that I'm creating, it's an equal exchange where, you have something I need, I have something you need. Great, let's exchange energies. And the money system dissolves. I love to garden. I love to plant food and grow food. That brings me joy. So that's something that I would do in my new paradigm. I would spend time on the land doing that while I'm helping people heal and facilitating that for them. It's where I see this going is we are all living from our essences doing things that we enjoy and love. And it's easy. You know, we're not struggling to make a living. We're not struggling to pay our bills. We're enjoying life. That's really the bottom line. We're enjoying life.
I'm still trying to work out how I'm going to receive one of these raindrop therapies from you.
Either you're going to have to fly me to Dubai, or you're going to have to come to Sedona.
Fortunately enough, I have a daughter who's following your footsteps pretty much, and she does a lot of this massage. And it'd be great if you got to meet her sometime. Her name's Rachel, and yeah, she loves all of this type of stuff. So I can actually get a really good massage off her. So maybe that's the answer.
Just tell her to sprinkle some essential oils on there.
Yeah. But also a trip to Sedona is good too.
Yes. I would love to say something about that though. Because that ties into this conversation of the new business paradigm, and that's owning our essence and our value. You know, there's a reason you're attracted to having one of those raindrop technique sessions for me is because you've experienced my essence, you've experienced the value that I bring, the energy that I bring. It's different than anyone else's energy and essence. It's not better than, it's just different. And, you know, we all are attracted to different energies and essences. But in this new paradigm, it's important that we each know who we are, that we own our essence, we own our value. It's important that we keep our bodies healthy, because how are we going to run a business and help other people if we are not healthy emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually? We have to look at all of those things and keep all of those things, you know, the top of our list of how we're going to love ourselves and care for ourselves. I believe it's important that we're connected to nature when we're in our new paradigm business. Because if you look how nature works, it doesn't work. It just does. It just is. It just happens. And there's so much wisdom we can get from nature by being immersed in it. The vibration, the frequency that comes through nature into our bodies when we're physically spending time in nature is invaluable into our creative process, into our slowing down, surrendering process. I first learned about surrender by being in an ocean. I was floating, which I could never do. My feet would sink or my head would sink and I'd get freaked out and I could never float on my back. The first time in my life when I felt truly surrendered, I was in an ocean in Costa Rica. That was 1.5 years ago. And within 6 months, because I focused on that feeling and I meditated on that every day, I had embodied surrender. Like surrender was in my body. I knew what it was to be surrendered. And that's what enabled me to do my big move from Pennsylvania to Arizona.
Excellent.
Yeah. I have a few more tips to give people about,
yes, please.
About the new paradigm. We talked a little bit about acceptance, but we didn't talk about acceptance in terms of the way things are now. Because if we are to move forward into a new paradigm and create something different, we need to be in 100% acceptance of the way things are right now. Now, it's this weird thing because we want to create a new paradigm because we don't like the way things are right now, but we'll never be able to move forward if we're not completely in love and acceptance of the way things are right now. So just take a deep breath, everyone who's watching, listening, tuning in. Looking at the way things are now in your personal life, in your business life, noticing where you are not accepting things, noticing where you could be in complete acceptance, because that negative energetic charge dissolves when you are in acceptance. and then you can move forward and create something new. So that's really key in the new business paradigm.
Absolutely.
I talked about hydration in the first interview. Hydration, feeding ourselves well, that's huge. Again, if we're going to be running businesses, we have to take care of our health. There's no way around it. And when you are hydrated and eating pure foods, the energy that comes through you is more pure. Your essence is more vibrant. People are attracted to you because you're radiating at a higher frequency because of what you're eating and how you're staying hydrated. So those things are big, big, big for me. If you listen to my story from the last video and you did the math, you'll realize that I'm older than I look. And that's very intentional. I'm growing younger every day because I'm hydrated. I'm drinking 3 bottles of water every day. I'm eating pure foods. This is something very intentional that I'm doing for myself so that I can be a leader in this new paradigm, so that I have the stamina, the endurance, the energy to do this, to hold the space for this, to create this. Okay. Meditation in some form, whether it's through movement or sitting quietly with a candle, you know, everyone has their own way of doing it. We have to find a way to get quiet, to still our minds, you know, all those thoughts that want to rush through our minds. We have to find a way to slow those down so that we can access our heart, so we can access our intuition, we can access our soul and our spirit, what really wants to be expressed through us. We will never find that if our minds are on overdrive. And trust me, it took me years to really get that one. I mean, I've still got work to do there, but gosh, that's another thing that created the chronic fatigue syndrome, is my mind was just full speed ahead all the time. That's exhausting. So we've got to find a way to quiet ourselves, and we can do that with our breath. Breathing deeply through our bellies, you know, making sure that the breath is coming in. So I'll just give everyone a tip. When you breathe, look at yourself in the mirror. If you take a deep breath in and you go like this, and you see your chest come up and your shoulders rise, that means you're bringing the air into your upper lungs, and that's a stress response. What you want to be able to do is bring the air in through your belly, because that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's the part of your body that calms you down. So when you're taking deep breaths in and out through your belly, you're able to access that surrender, that acceptance, that peace, that stillness, and you can hear your heart and your intuition guiding you on where to go with your business. And the last thing I want to give you is what I call the full body yes. As an entrepreneur, lots of opportunities are presented to you. Lots of things will come your way. You know, you should do this type of marketing, you should do this for your website, you should be on this interview, you know, all of those things. Ask your body to show you what it feels like to have a full knowing that, yes, this is the thing to do. Ask your body to give you that experience to know what it's like. And then when you need to make a decision on something, you access that. Is my body vibrating a yes? Is this something that I just want to do with every part of my being? If it's not saying that you can't do it, but just know that that level of fulfillment for you personally won't be as high as if it's a full body yes. When it's a full body yes, all systems go, you know it's the right thing with every part of your being. That's a powerful way to say yes as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Wonderful tips, Susie. Wonderful.
Thank you.
I might just add that what I've noticed in doing these interviews is that acceptance is probably one of the major keys that people are discovering and learning, and it seems to be a common theme running right through everybody that I've interviewed so far. The acceptance of of what is.
Yeah.
And really that gets down to accepting who you are or
Yeah.
who I am. That's kind of the core of it all, is knowing our value and worth within.
Yeah. Life is beautiful. Life is beautiful.
Mm.
Let's accept it as such.
Yeah. Susie, I really want to thank you for joining us in this conversation. Such an important theme, I think.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see this new paradigm of business become a reality really soon.
I pray it so. I pray it so. And I'd love to, if it's okay with you, I'd love to share a gift with your audience if they go to my website.
Sure.
If people would like to stay in touch with me and my journey, I write newsletters once or twice a month, and a lot of it is me sharing my vulnerability about what's happening in my world, and some some business kind of stuff too. But if people go to my website, susiebeiler.com, they can join my newsletter community, and they'll get my mini book as a PDF. And my mini book is Create Your Miracle, Be Who You Didn't Know You Could Be, and it's based on my own life. And it was one of those books that was, I call it channeled, because it was just like step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, there's the book. So they can get that by going to susiebeiler.com, SUSIEBEILER.
Yeah. And after our discussion today, I mean, I think we're so synced in our resonance that I'm going to go and read your book. And I just want to thank you again. I want to thank everybody in the audience who's listening to the Be Empowered show. It's really a discussion or a conversation about how to connect with your truth and how to find freedom. So I'm your host, Graham Hopkins. Before we go, I'd like to ask you to do a big favour. If this is resonating with you, could you please go to iTunes and leave a review on iTunes? That will increase the ratings of this show and enable this message to be heard by a greater audience. If any of these concepts regarding the new business paradigm, being connected, feeling worthy about yourself, if they resonate with you, you can also read my book on Amazon. It's called The Manifesto of Your Inspirational Mind. And I think you, after this discussion today, you're starting to see what the inspirational mind actually is. It's actually that our own spirit that we're connecting to. In this case, we're talking about connecting to it in terms of business. Or you can go to my website, www.beempoweredgroup.com, and download a free ebook there. It's called Know Your True Value and Worth. And we've also talked about that today. So on behalf of Susie Beiler and myself, Graham Hopkins, we'd like to wish you all a future of financial freedom and abundance in the workplace. Remember, change your energy, change your life. Thank you.